Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro rolling out hour number 2. If you found the breaking news yesterday, and I'm laughing about it because I do believe it's laughable, the Vegas Golden Knights firing head coach Gerard Gallant, a guy who had over a 60% winning record. He took us to the Stanley Cup finals in year 1. Could have gotten there in year 2 if they didn't get screwed last year against the San Jose Sharks. And, yeah, they were on a little bit of a skid, but they're still a few points out of first place. It doesn't make any sense. So I thought to help us shed some light on this, we always love having this guy on the show. Danny Negreanu, not only one of the world's best poker players for years, but we don't have him on. We don't ask him poker questions. He's such a Vegas Golden Knights superfan and probably one of the most knowledgeable hockey fans I've ever met in my life and a friend of the show. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I've been better. I'm a little confused how we're supposed to go from rooting for a humble, well-liked coach to a clown who, wouldn't even acknowledge the fact that last year in the Stanley Cup, finals, that penalty against his team was maybe the wrong call. Wouldn't even acknowledge it. And just, I don't know, man. This is just tough to swallow. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, you're speaking of DeBoer. So let me ask you this, Daniel. Let me give you my quick opinion, and then I want to know if you agree with me or not on this. I don't think this had anything to do with wins and losses. I really don't. I think it had everything to do with problems within the organization between Gallant and management. It had to have something to do with that. And then you have McCrimmon coming out yesterday saying, well, we spoke to DeBoer within the last 24 hours. This wasn't something that, does anybody in the world believe that, Daniel? So my question to you is, why are the Knights lying? They clearly are. And why do you think this really happened? Do you agree with me?
Oh, I actually agree with you 100%. They're not only lying, they're trying to muzzle. They don't want fan reactions because they know they'll be negative. It's very cowardly to do this when we're on a 1-month road trip because they knew if they made this decision and the team's playing here in Las Vegas, they were going to hear the boos from the crowd. I mean, it's like as I was talking about before with, the switch from Gallant. So this is doubly bad. Okay, so you fire Gallant, right? Now, you replace him with the guy that he called the clown in the playoffs last year, who said things about Gallant that were untrue about him chirping at players and things like that. It's a direct slap in the face to Gallant. And what about the fan base? We grew to hate the Sharks. It's one of the best rivalries, in hockey today. And all of a sudden now you bring the leader of the enemy into our, home here, and we're supposed to accept him and go, yay, look at this new jerk we've got coaching our team.
Now, and you bring up DeBoer and the Knights and some people that are defending this move, not many are, by the way, but the ones that are talking about his resume and wow, what he's going to bring to the Vegas Golden Knights. What can this guy do that Gerard Gallant can't do? The guy brought us year 1 to the Stanley Cup finals, might have done that last year if they didn't get screwed in Game 7 against the Sharks, and correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, but they were still a few points out of first place. There's still a chance that they could have had a push in the playoffs. Could they not?
You're no question about it. Part of the issue is, the bar. You're absolutely right in saying this is personal and not based on performance. Year 1, Gerard Gallant wins the Jack Adams. Year 2, we have another, solid season. Year 3, he was named the coach of the All-Star game for having a first-place team, okay? Then we go on a little skid and you get rid of him instantly, which shows a lack of loyalty. Let's take a look underneath the hood and see, was Gallant doing a good job? Well, in expected goal percentage, we ranked 2nd. Shot for percentage, 3rd. Corsi for percentage, 3rd. High danger chances, 5th.
Wow.
Guess where we ranked very, very low? We ranked 28th in PDO, and PDO is a stat that tracks essentially luck. We also had a save percentage that dipped. Since Fleury's father has passed away, unfortunately, his save percentage is 8.46, okay? The reason Pete DeBoer got fired in San Jose wasn't because he's a bad coach, because he wasn't getting goaltending, right? This isn't a case of the coach doing anything wrong. The Vegas Golden Knights shooting percentage ranking, near the bottom of the league, luck factors, shooting, is not being able to stop pucks. Now, there's no question if you watched a couple games at home, we're getting off to really bad starts, but hasn't this coach earned the right to right the ship? Is this the St. Louis Blues of last year where they ranked last in the league? No. As you said, we're 3 points out of first place in a very, much more competitive division this year than people give credit for. And, I believe, and this is what's going to frustrate me the most, because the Vegas Golden Knights are going to turn it around. This team is far too good to do that. And now people are going to be like, see, look, and it's going to have nothing to do with DeBoer. It's going to have everything to do with the fact that the team on the ice there is a quality team. Now, typically teams do get a jump after a new coach, but I wonder with this one, because I think a lot of veterans who, were very happy to play under Gallant are going to be really uncomfortable, maybe. And I think guys like Reeves and Eakin, this is basically their swan song, because this coach is not going to utilize them and trust in them the way that Coach Gallant did for sure.
So DeBoer was hired roughly, we'll call it an hour after Gallant was fired, and Kelly McCrimmon, the GM, was asked a question yesterday, how early did the communication with DeBoer start? And he said it was, a 24-hour thing. It was just kind of a quick decision. I don't buy that. Do you?
Well, listen, first of all, if that's true, what does that exactly tell you? That this was a rash decision made illogically, based on like one game in Buffalo that we played an okay game. It wasn't a bad game. Buffalo's not as bad as everyone says they are, and it's tough to win on the road in this league. So if that's the case, then that's a rash decision made. I doubt it. I think, I agree with you. It's likely that they had him on their radar for a little bit longer than this. It seems as though, as you mentioned earlier, this was likely a beef between Gallant's strategy versus the type of team that George McPhee wanted to put on the ice. You looked at Tatar. He came in, he was benched. Shipachyov didn't get any playing time. Gusev, clearly Gallant didn't want to have any part with him. He trusts in guys like last year Ryan Carpenter, Cody Eakin, guys who will get the job done on the defensive end. And here's the thing: when if you're at totally opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of what you expect this team to be, and you still have a coach, there, I guess it makes sense, to say, listen, if we don't agree with the strategy you're employing, then get rid of them. But when you look at the numbers, it was working. Yes, we were not getting the wins and losses we would like to, but everyone knows by the end of it, things have a tendency to even out. If you're a poker player, understand math in any way, shape, or form, you look at the system in place and look at what they're achieving underneath the hood.
Exactly.
It will come back to the norm, and it's just
you're absolutely right. If you're a good poker player, you could lose 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sessions in a row, but no, over 1,000 sessions or 100 sessions or 200 sessions, you're most likely going to come out ahead.
As long as your fundamentals are solid.
Absolutely. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Kid Poker, Daniel Negreanu, also Vegas Golden Knights superfan. We're talking about the firing of Gerard Gallant yesterday. Okay, Danny, you talked a little bit about the fans and how the Knights are, treating this whole situation. So we have Ron Futrell from Channel 8 who's coming on our show next. And he told us he went to the Knights practice facility yesterday with some other members of the media. I don't know if you heard this story, because they wanted to get some audio from some of the fans and get their thoughts. Members of the Knights front office kicked them out of City National Arena yesterday. They kicked them out of there, and they did not want them to talk to the fans. What does that tell you? I think it's an embarrassment, and I think it's a cowardly act, and I think they know that the majority of fans like yourself do not agree with the decision of firing Gerard Gallant. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely shameful and disgusting that you're trying to censor the fan reaction simply because it's not going to be favorable for you. I get that this organization likes to be tight-lipped and George McPhee doesn't like to share a lot of information, but you need to let the fans be heard, okay? And when you make decisions, you need to stand by them and understand that they're not always going to be popular. But to muzzle the fans or to try to squash this and have everybody in line saying the company line that is like this, this was based on performance. BS, this was based on performance. We all know that's not true. Gallant was a beloved coach here, and the fact that you bailed on him after a few rough games, despite him being the All-Star game coach,
it's crazy.
How did you expect? It's shameful that they expected the fans to take this, and if they don't, to muzzle them, to not allow reporters to do their job.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you running here? What is this, like communist Russia?
It's crazy.
China?
We
can't speak against the government? It's ridiculous.
It is. Daniel, why would we not see this in another sport? For example, let's just, Steve Kerr, when he had that run with the Golden State Warriors, or any team for that matter in the NBA that picks their coach to be the all-star coach, we'd never see that coach get fired unless there was a huge scandal going on or something. We wouldn't see this happen in Major League Baseball. We would not see this happen in the NFL, or, when you have a candidate for Coach of the Year being fired midseason because he goes on a little bit of a skid. Why does this happen in the NHL?
Well, I don't think it does happen in the NHL. It happened here. Okay,
Yeah.
it happened here in Las Vegas, and again, I can respect the fact that they like to keep a tight ship and not divulge secrets that are going on within the team and not give anybody free information. That all makes sense. As a poker player, I can appreciate that.
Right.
You don't want to give away free information, but this is different. This is like you're trying to stop, the media from doing their job. You're not allowing the voices to be heard of the fans. You're not hearing what they want, what they have to say. That's just running like a dictatorship type regime like China, which doesn't allow people to speak out, puts them in prison. It's like, come on, man. What do you think this is? I get that they don't want the narrative to be what it is, but this is what it is. You're not going to have a whole bunch of people rally around going, "Yay, Gallant's fired! Bring in DeBoer, and we can win a Stanley Cup that he's never done." Himself. He's made it to the finals a couple times. He's obviously, a decent coach. But my goodness, of all the coaches you could have brought in, you bring in this guy, and you confuse the fan base to thinking like we're supposed to root for him now. Doesn't Reeves hate him? Does he hate Reeves? Like, I get it. Sometimes in hockey you see like Matt Pacioretty and Stone as players. They used to wrestle when they played in Ottawa and Montreal. And now they're buddies and they're on the same line. But this is different. This is a coach.
Right.
This is a coach who acted like a jackass during the playoffs last year and was totally disrespectful after winning to a team that just lost, where he should have shown some humility, which I don't know that he has access to.
And you made a good point. I think that the crux that the powers that be for the Golden Knights are going to say is that, this coach, DeBoer, he in his first year with two teams, he's taken them to the Stanley Cup Finals. Do you think that the culture right now around coaching in hockey, Gerard Gallant is the 8th coach fired this year? Do you think that that's one of the reasons why they did this?
I mean, who knows? It's possible that because of last year when St. Louis ranked dead last, made a coaching change, and all of a sudden everyone's like giving the coach credit instead of a kid named Jordan Binnington, who happened to have a stellar run and played fantastic down the stretch, right? I say the number one reason, if you want to check, look at when coaches get fired, and then you can always tell by looking at the save percentage of the goaltenders over the last 3-4 weeks, okay? When that dips, coaches seem to get fired, and it's completely unfair. When you look, I mean, this is true of coaches in the NFL and in the NHL. When you ignore analytics and statistics and just go on a hunch, or as Kelly McCrimmon said, we had a feeling.
Yeah.
Then,
how ridiculous is that?
We had a feeling.
Hey,
that
Daniel,
we needed a coaching change.
can I give a gambling analogy to that and how ridiculous I think that is? And I'm not talking about poker because obviously it's completely different. You're reading players and your gut feeling based on reads and information. But let's just say someone's at the roulette table and they go with number 33, whatever, and it hits. And somebody asks that gambler, that tourist, why did you bet 33? And he says, you know what? I just had a feeling. And I'm thinking to myself, what a moron. You're a dumb gambler. You just had a feeling. That is the same. I guess that's the interpretation I get from McCrimmon. What do you mean you had a feeling?
A more honest take would have been if McCrimmon said, we didn't like the effort from the team in the last few games. They got behind. They look like they've been lazy. They seem too comfortable.
Right.
So we felt like we're sending a message by changing the coach.
Yeah.
And then at the same time say, listen, we're not blaming this on Gallant because it wasn't his fault. But there's no question. I mean, we watch the games, like getting down 3-0, consistently like that. There's problems there. There's a little bit of lackadaisical, but that happens with a lot of teams when you have a 7 or 8 game homestand.
Right.
You can get a little comfortable, and there's no question that happened. But why are we assuming that Gerard Gallant wasn't the right guy to light that fire to get them to turn it around? I believe he would have been just fine. And of course, now the players are going to be on edge tonight, and they're going to be at their best, hopefully, trying to impress a new coach. But like I said, I think this team was going to turn it around regardless who's behind the bench.
So Gallant had an interview. He had a press conference a couple weeks ago. He actually walked out of that press conference. There was a reporter that asked a question in regards to his record against teams over 500, and he didn't handle that. I personally didn't think that Gerard Gallant handled the media very well. Do you think that maybe he had that same type of demeanor with upper management, and that was kind of where this originated from?
Yeah, I remember that question and the way that it was phrased.
I thought it was fair.
I didn't. I thought it was ridiculous.
Really?
You just beat a team in Philadelphia. What are you saying? They suck? It's basically like you just won a game. There's so many things you can talk about, and you want to talk about other games that happened way before this. It was really odd.
And that's a good
point. It was
point.
almost like looking to criticize the coach after he just had an impressive win. So I thought he was, and I know many people in the media, and they all said that they had, a good relationship with Gallant. He's tough, he's stern, but he was also very fair and honest. and willing to discuss things. I don't think. I mean, it's possible that his personality type, and I believe that's likely the case, maybe didn't rub management the right way, because this feels more personal than anything.
Exactly.
It really doesn't feel. It also, I think ultimately underneath it all, it likely has something to do with maybe contract extension negotiations not going well, and Gallant's contract was up at the end of this year, so they decided to make the move earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But listen, if it happened in the offseason and Gallant went and they didn't sign a contract, I don't think you'd have the fan reaction.
I agree.
People might have been disappointed. Yeah. We were like, that's too bad. We love Gallant. But they wouldn't feel like, cheated or just betrayed in the way that they do right now.
I agree. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Kid Poker, Daniel Negreanu, super Vegas Golden Knights fan, extremely knowledgeable when it comes to the NHL. So, Daniel, let's move forward now. I think we all agree in this room, certainly, and I think many of the fans agree this was a bad decision. But isn't it going to get worse if DeBoer doesn't get this team to win? What if, and I know this is a big if, but what if there's a disaster that takes place and somehow this team in the second half of the year does not make the playoffs? What if their record barely squeaks them into the playoffs and they get embarrassed in the first round? I mean, this is going to look really bad for the Vegas Golden Knights, isn't it?
Especially after announcing the ticket price increase.
For Pete DeBoer, and this is unfortunate for him, right, as much as I've smashed the guy, he's got a real kind of like a no-win situation here, because if he does turn the ship, and the team does start to win, and he's going to have to win a Stanley Cup for this to be seen as a success. And I don't know that that's going to happen. But as you said, it's a free roll the other way, in that if the team doesn't perform under him, then people are really going to criticize this move even more so. So if he wins, that's expected. That he's expected to win, and everything's going to be fine on this road trip. Yada yada, kumbaya. But if he doesn't, then I think you're going to lose a lot of fan support that have been very supportive of this team from year one. They've done all the right things. And this is the first time I think a lot of fans are embarrassed to be fans. They are disenfranchised. They're feeling betrayed. And this is the first time we've seen adversity like this between management and fans. Obviously, there's been moves like, Gusev not getting him. A lot of people were upset about that. But again, why didn't we get Gusev? Was that Gallant's fault? No. It's because of the contract signed by McPhee when he tried to sign Reeves for 3 years rather than 2. So he pays him $2.75 million, which is more than he's worth for a year, obviously. But that's not Reeves' fault. That's not Gallant's fault. That was management not understanding that they weren't going to have as much cap space and overestimating what the cap was going to be. So now it was difficult to move a $4.6 million contract in Eakin and a $2.75 in Reeves to make room for what Gusev was going to ask for, which is about $4 million a year.
So Gallant gets fired. He finds out in an Uber, by the way, but he gets fired in the middle of a long road trip. To me, this seems like kind of an amateur move by the Vegas Golden Knights upper management. Do you agree with that?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't call it amateur. I would say that it's calculated, in that they did this on the road because they knew they'd have a month to right the ship before they brought the team home and would hear the boo birds. Because I mean, if this game was happening tonight in Las Vegas, fans were not going to be supportive of this move. Like, I've already ordered my Gerard Gallant Detroit Red Wings jersey. It's on the way, right?
Yeah,
it's like
that's most likely. That's most likely. So that's where you'll land. Yeah,
I think it's cowardly to do it like this, but it's also probably calculated, and also from their perspective, what they're trying to do, which is muzzle the negative reaction from the community. Makes a lot of sense in that regard.
So speaking of the game tonight, they are in Ottawa. They are minus 190 on the road to win the game. Do they win this game, Daniel?
Well, listen, Ottawa's not a very good team, but they've played a lot of good home games. They're a lot better than people expected. I sure as hell wouldn't lay $1.90. There's no question I would do that. So, obviously the odds are Vegas will win the game, but they're not going to win the game 67% of the time. No chance of that. So if I were getting plus 190 on Ottawa, I'd happily take that and roll the dice on another lackluster performance from a confused team right now.
Well, Daniel, I mean, listen, you're a popular guy. You're one of the most recognizable poker players in the world, and I would imagine you have some sort of relationship with Foley, some members of the organization. Will you be talking to them at any time soon? Can you tell us that?
Yeah, no.
Really?
I talked to a few of the players, and a lot of people in the media, but I don't really have a direct relationship. I mean, I did when the team first came here, and I obviously helped in being one of the founding 50 who
right.
helps with
I'm
ticket sales and
surprised
things like
though.
that.
I'm surprised though. I mean, you're a local celebrity here, and I would think that they would reach out to you a little bit more. I'm a little surprised that a guy like Foley hasn't reached out to you and said, "Hey, why don't you come sit in my suite for a few games? You've done so much for this organization." Listen, I'm not trying to bash the Knights, Daniel, but I've heard some pretty troubling stories in regards to charity and them not being involved with certain organizations. I don't really want to go into that with you. Like I said, I'm not trying to bash them. But from a standpoint of yourself, like I said, I mean, you've done so much for this organization and PR for the team, free PR, might I add. That just bothers me a little bit that they don't treat you better. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, listen, I mean, I've sat in his booth. I sat with him literally once in 3 years, in the suite up there. But aside from that, I'm not involved in any decision making or in
maybe you should be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, listen. Yeah, I mean, I think here's what they're missing too. Underneath this all, from a PR perspective, they had such goodwill with the fans, right?
Right.
Such goodwill. Like, people love this team, love this town, love management, right? They had to know, or maybe they didn't. Maybe they really didn't realize how this was going to affect that sort of goodwill, as I said earlier, between fans. And was this move worth it? I think in the long term, they're going to see that it wasn't. And anything short of a Stanley Cup victory, which, again, I don't know that we're primed to do, especially now. Anything short of that, and fans are going to see this as even more of a disappointment because of the coaching change.
And by the way, a quick reminder, they decided to spike ticket prices a few days ago, so good timing for that. Daniel, we always love taking some time out of your day to join us, man. We really love you, and we appreciate it. And you might want to listen, because coming up next, we're going to be talking to Ron Futrell, who claims he was clicked out of City National Arena. That's going to be interesting. But Daniel, always love it when you come on, man. I hope we have you on again really soon, and thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm going to tune in. I'm curious to hear his take on this.
Yeah, he's coming up right next, Daniel. Thank you so much again.
Hey, thanks a lot, Daniel.
You got it, guys.
All right, there you go. It is Kid Poker himself. He's a pretty good poker player from last I heard. He's not bad. I think I can take him. But, yeah, he's pretty good. He's got some jewelry, some bracelets, some WSOB bracelets. I'm telling you, this guy, Daniel Negreanu, is one of the smartest guys I know, and he is so knowledgeable when it comes to hockey. It is ridiculous. It's almost scary. The guy knows everything. I think he could name all the players on the fourth line on the Senators. I mean, it's absolutely insane. But we always appreciate his take, and I think me and Daniel are certainly on the same page when it comes to the firing of Vegas Golden Knights head coach Gerard Gallant. Coming up next, Channel 8's very own Ron Futrell. He's in Ottawa covering this game. He just covered a press conference. We're going to ask him about that and much, much more coming up next with Ron Futrell. Take a quick break. Be back right after this. You are listening to the Vegas Take right here on 101.5 FM, 720 AM. Be back right after this.